All right, so thank you everybody for coming today. This is our Iterate UX virtual meetup for Saturday. We're excited to have you here. As a reminder, excuse me, please remember to be muted while Natalia is presenting. But if you have any questions at all, feel free to drop that in the chat and we'll collect them for later on. As an introduction, for those who are new, Iterate UX is an open virtual community with the goal of helping UXers learn, connect, and grow their careers. People of all experience levels are welcome, and it's not just limited to designers. Anyone related to or interested in UX are welcome to come. I think it's especially fruitful to learn or like knowledge share between disciplines. So feel free to invite and or join. Today, I will be hosting our event. My name is Alicia. I'm a UX designer with specialty in research, and I'm an event coordinator here at Iterate UX. Today, our moderator will be Kim. Kim, you want to say hi?
Hi, everyone. I'll be moderating today. If you have any questions, drop them in the chat. I'll address them later. I am also an event coordinator with Iterate UX.
Yeah, thank you, Kim. So, we offer a multitude of events like workshop, mock interviews, resume and portfolio reviews, coffee chats, and live speaker events, as well as interactive workshops like we're doing today. And we also host design challenges and mentorships. So we offer all these different kind of avenues to help you build your skills in all aspects of UX. If you like what you see here, feel free to join our Discord or our LinkedIn. And if you want to support us, you can join as a volunteer or a design mentor. We're always looking to grow our teams. If you'd like, you can also support us on Ko-fi with a donation. All funds are reinvested into the community to support our operations. And we also have a merch store, so feel free to check it out and support in whatever way you would like. You can see the links in our chat for our LinkedIn website and other resources for Iterate UX. We have another design challenge workshop coming up next Saturday. It's going to be the 23rd at 12 p.m. PST. It's for ideation and prototype with Halik. And Halik is also one of our Iterate US mentors. He's also the UX lead at Applied Digital. Today, we have the wonderful Natalia Torres. Natalia is a product designer and UX research lead consultant at Netcompany. And Natalia, on behalf of the teams here at Iterate UX, we want to thank you for taking your time to share your knowledge and your experience with us. We are super excited to have you today.
Thank you.
Of course. So before we get started, please unmute yourself if you have something specific to share. Leave your questions in the chat box. We will be collecting them and Natalia will be answering them later on. And remember to join our Discord if you haven't yet. Again, this will be recorded and posted on our YouTube channel for you to review or share later on. So without further ado, Natalie, take it away.
Thank you very much. I'll just share my screen. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here. Can you all see my screen?
Yes, you see your screen.
Perfect.
That's good.
So I will start this just talking a little bit about me. So I've been working for 12 years as a designer, and for the last 6 years exclusively as a product designer and UX researcher. I work for a IT consultancy called Netcompany. They are a Danish consultants, but I'm based in the UK. I'm based in London right now, actually relocating to Edinburgh in 2 weeks for a Scottish project. Like I'm already on this project, but I've been I'm relocating right now. I'm also an education leader at a community in the UK called PD Ladies. It's specifically for women in tech and for everything that we go through in this industry. Yeah, I specialize specifically on UX research and product failure. I'm the lead at product failure in my company as well. And on LinkedIn, I talk a lot about psychology on UX and women in tech. The reason why is because I do believe that user behavior can really, really help us solve better problems. So I think that's one of the reasons why I really chose to go towards that field in the past. So I added my LinkedIn here if anyone wants to connect, to follow, to share. Yeah, so up to you guys. So so I will start the define phase, just talking a little bit about the double diamond. So in UX design, you will have a few methodologies that you can follow. You will have something called the double diamond. You can do design thinking, you can do lean UX, agile UX as well. So there are different versions of the process that you can follow. I prefer in the field to do the double diamond, but on the next slide, you can also do the design thinking, which is basically like, um, it's an option, to be very honest with you. There's no right or wrong here. So both of them should be like good choices. The reason why I like the double diamond is because I do work on iteration. Sorry, I think there's. Oh. So the reason why I do like the double diamond preferably is because, sorry, can you guys see my screen?
Yep, I see it.
Oh, okay, perfect. I lost it for a minute. Okay, so the reason why I do like the double diamond is because this gives me the possibility of iterating design. There are two ways of seeing the UX process. UX can be a very nice and smooth methodology that you go from phase to phase. You go from research, you go to the define phase, you go to the ideation, prototype, and you test it. That's great. That's not the real world though. The real world product, you're going to have a lot of failures. You're going to have to iterate that a million times. You're going to have to go back to the beginning of the process, and you're going to have to diverge and converge quite a lot. And that's why I prefer this methodology, because once you actually test something and launch it to the market as an MVP, you can always go back and start conducting a little bit of research there as well. On my current company, since I work for an IT company, I actually we go through an agile process. I work with a lot of developers as well. So the reason why I like this process is because in agile we can do 2-week sprints, and within those 2 weeks I always choose a little problem that I want to solve within that. And this diagram actually helps me to diverge, do a little bit of research on it, converge to where I am, which problem I want to define, then diverge again to ideate some solutions for that, and then to converge again to actually prototype and test it. On my current role, I'm actually just working as a UX researcher specifically. I used to be a product designer for the NHS on my previous project within the same company as a consultant. But now with the Scottish government, I'm actually going through as a UX researcher specifically. So this is my preferred method. As I said, there are other ones out there that you can choose. This is also very familiar, and also people use this very often. It's very similar. So you empathize, you do your research, you define a problem, you ideate your solution, you prototype, and then you test it. Very similar. And that's it. So those are my favorite methodologies. What I want to talk to you specifically today is about the define phase. So I was told that you've been through research. So if you are in the challenge, you've done your research. If you're not in the challenge, bear with me. I will give you some tasks separately in the near future. But if you are in the challenge, you did your research, and you now have a bunch of information. You have a pool of data that you might not know what to do with. Sometimes it can be a little bit overwhelming as well, because we never know how much data we can get from a research piece. It can be something like a very short piece of research. You can do a short survey or something like this. But if you're actually doing a big quantity of qualitative research, and if you're going through usability testing, interviews, focus groups, and all of these methods, then it can be quite overwhelming. You can get a lot of data in your hands, and to actually learn how to synthesize that and to focus on the right problem that you have to focus, it can be quite difficult. So that's why we get into this phase specifically. As I said, the define phase is focused on defining a problem. Essentially, that's all you're going to be doing on this phase. There are different types of methodologies you will be able to pick from that you can use to define your problem. So this phase basically involves synthesizing research, It ensures designs understand and prioritize user needs, ultimately guiding and directing the focus of the project of the process. What I really love about this, that I normally don't include here because it's not part of the standard process, is something called the pain points map as well. It's not really that common for people to use, but since I work in the public sector, so basically every single person in a country is my user. I literally work with every single citizen. For me, it's very useful to create a map of pain points and actually try to understand all of the problems out there that I have. I think the majority of people won't ever have to deal with all of this. You will be able to focus on one problem per time. But in my case, if you ever actually face like a defined phase where you do have, I am not kidding, over 1,000 different problems within the same project, sorry, you will be able to actually build like more like bigger forms of mapping as well. But for the purpose of this one, let's focus on my favorite ones, which are like the ones that I find it most useful. First one is the affinite mapping. Then I normally do a problem statement. Then I normally go into a how might we. Then I normally do personas, which it's not going to be useful for every single project. It's very useful for the defined phase, but sometimes you can create archetypes as well instead of personas. You can also do a customer journey and a user flow. You can go more in depth on information architecture here as well, but I would advise you to actually leave this for after you do the ideation phase, that you will normally know a little bit more of what you're actually building. But for this phase specifically, I'll give you the reason why I always start with an affinite mapping, and it's my preferred method, no matter the type of research that I do. An affinite mapping will actually help you collate the right insight into groups. And for me, that's invaluable because in my career and in my experience, I do get sometimes mirror boards that can be quite overwhelming, and with over 300 or 500 insights per time. And for that kind of thing, having a mapping that you can actually this is just a collaborative activity that you can actually take your team and actually cluster related ideas to identify patterns and key themes. It can really help you to define your problem for the future. And depending on how much you have to collate and to cluster together, you will have multiple problems at once. You will have a map where you will be able to see upfront uh, a bunch of problems at the same time. However, this is the first step to give you some form of clarity in this project. To me, this is my favorite method. I never start to define phase without doing this. This is my number one method. If I go back here a little bit, I will talk a little bit about problem statement as well, which is just to create. So once you have that mapping and you have all of that cluster and you have all of those themes, and you are able to actually give titles to those themes, to those groups, you will see that it will start to be a little bit clear the types of problems you are facing. You will face problems like transparency, customers that don't see transparency with your projects, like trust problems. You will see problems like errors, defects, or you will see problems like situations where they can't really use your product, or that they won't be able to accomplish a sale. So all of these problems, they will start popping up from this affinite mapping. And the problem statement will actually help you to frame all of those overwhelming problems, because on the affinite mapping, you will still have a lot of problems. Once you have your problem statement, I will normally do a how might we statement. We will get to that as well. The how might we statement is just a better way to reframe this problem statement in a more open-ended way. So it helps you to open your mind to different possibilities. So the problem statements converge. I think the how might we diverge a little bit and helps you to see the problem from different lenses. We'll have personas at this stage as well. A persona is just a fictional character created to represent a user type. So it might be, depending on the sector you're working with, if you're working for B2C, you will have very specific personas as well. So It might be slightly easier. If you're working for B2B, then you're going to have more like buyer persona based. If you work in the public sector, I would go more with archetypes than personas, because then it starts to be everyone. So you won't be able to create personas for everyone. Once personas are done, you go into customer journey. The customer journey goal is to basically to help you to define the journey of the project of the product, from awareness to conversion. So what happens in that whole journey? What are the steps that this customer will take, and what the possible failures and opportunities they will have? And once I have that, I normally do a user flow, which is basically like just a step by step of what happens when I am creating a product. I do normally love to define what those steps are. So this is just overview. And here I have a little bit of an example of a problem statement. You can go, a problem statement is just a concise and clear, actionable description of a design problem. And you will go and say, I am, who is this user? User X is Z because of Y. I will give you a perfect example in a bit. So just trying to understand, so for you to try and understand a little bit of how you can actually frame this. So let's suppose I am X person trying to achieve X, but I have this problem because of this barrier, which makes me feel that way. So this is a very, very, very complete problem statement. Depending on the sector you're working with, you will like tailor this and adapt to this problem statement too. Not necessarily, not all problem statements are made equal. Let's just put that way. So you can actually make variations of these ones. So this is problem statement for us. Then we have the how might we. How might we, it can be, you can have one problem statement, but you might have 10 different how might we situations. So if you have a problem statement of I am a person who is trying to I'm trying to buy food for my dog, but the food I can find on the supermarket is not really high value for me. So it makes me feel a little bit overwhelmed because I cannot find the right food. So there are different types of problems that you can do, and the how might we can be, how might we help Natalia find the right food, which is straight away to your problem statement. But it can also be something like how might we help Natalia see find better food quality for her dog, or how might we help Natalia um, uh, use the understand better the food industry for dogs. So it can be quite big as well. We can actually make it like the problem statement and the how might we quite big. Okay, personas. They are just literally fictional characters representing a different type of user. So it's just, you're not representing a single person here, you're representing a group of people, so like a group and a personality that is very important to your project or to your product, essentially. So I once worked for a cat company food, very interesting product, very amazing people. And this company actually had the majority of people purchasing from them being a woman. And the majority of these women were on a certain age as well. And the majority of these women were married, which means that there was also a partner in the house. But for some reason, 80% of the people making a purchase were women. So we were actually focusing our personas on female in a certain age because that was the focus of this company. So you're not basing that persona in one single person, you're basing that persona in a group, that actually in an audience that responds well to your product. You might have more than one persona. If you're working on B2B, you're going to have different types of buyer personas within the journey, for example. But if you're working for B2C, which is business to customer and business to business, sorry, I did not specify. If you're working for B2C, business to customer, you will be able to have probably less types of personas depending on the size of your company and the audience you're trying to achieve. Yeah, so this is personas. Customer journey. Once you have defined this persona here, We have this lady called Sarah Williams, and she works on company name, and she has goals, and she has skills, and she has needs. She has social media frustrations. She has an age, a personality, and everything. We're going to actually create a journey for that person. So how will that person specifically buy a product? How is that person specifically going through finding out who you are to actually converting and making a purchase? So this is how we normally do things. Like Sarah Williams will have stage one. She will have touch points on how she actually finds out uh, who your product is or what you do. She'll have emotions about that. She might have had a frustration with a competitor. So how does that make her feel? She might have some gains. She might have some pains about that, and all of that will give you opportunities as well. So if you had a competitor that is not really doing well and is frustrating people, that gives you a market, a way of improving, something different to offer to your customers. So what can you offer them that is different from from your competitors? So that's where you actually add everything. So you can rename the stages above. Not every single stage will be the same. So you can have something here like in business to business, it's quite common for people to actually talk about awareness, purchase, conversion, and actually and retention. But if you're working for business to consumer, it can be quite different. You can have different stages of, for example, someone buying a grocery on a supermarket, and you can have all of the single steps of someone purchasing that grocery on the supermarket. For example, stage one would be a person in a parking lot. So what happens in there? What's the experience there? Or stage two would be someone actually purchasing the groceries. What's the experience within the grocery shop? Stage three could be essentially going through the till. Stage four can be actually that person leaving with the groceries, like what happens in there. Do they actually take the trolley away? Where do they put that trolley? So it can be really, really different. So it's very important for us to map out the journey that we are going through with our customers. So if you go back to your persona, what is the journey Sarah Williams is taking is actually going to be the differentiator for how you actually sell your product. And it can also help you prevent product failure in the future. It's very common in my area that I am called at the end of something. Like I have loads of products where people allow the product to fail and to actually say, we don't know what's going on, we don't know why we're not selling, we don't know why people are not using. And 95% of the cases, I can tell you this by experience, is because they haven't gone through these stages. They haven't gone through research, they haven't gone through personas. They never mapped out who their audience is. They never mapped out what their customer journey. They never mapped out any of the important things about the people they are selling to. Businesses are very good in making decisions that they think it's good for businesses, but they are not very good yet to make decisions based on user needs. Like, who are my users, what I'm doing, why I'm doing this product for, like what's the reason why we are creating this. There's still a discrepancy between those two phases. A lot of people talk a lot about aligning business needs with user needs, but in my personal opinion, that's quite the same. Your business needs should be your user needs as well, because if your business needs are very different from your users needs, then you might have a problem in the future. So if you want to take your product towards a stage where it does not align to what your users are requesting from you, then you will have a problem in the future. So this is essentially what this phase is. So when you map your customer journey, you have clarity of every single step of what that person, that user is doing, of what that persona is doing. And you also can map how they are feeling along the way. And it gives you opportunities to improve along the way as well. So these are customer journeys. Now we have a little bit of user flow. This is one of my favorite things, to be very honest with you. I never actually go ahead from the define phase without mapping something like this, even though now I work in service. So it's a much larger type of view. But this for me is very important, that I actually mapped every single step and every single possibility that it can happen. It gives me a little bit of more, I feel safer when I'm actually creating a product where I can overview all the steps. So for example, I'm currently working on a project that I have 3 groups of users, completely independent, and we before we actually mapped out the user flow and we created a service map for that, we only had a view of one of these groups. But once we actually put everything on paper and we mapped every single stage, we actually were able to visualize the other 2 groups that we would have to take in consideration when we actually launch the product or service. A lot of people are working with services as well. Public sector is very common to have services nowadays. So a user flow is basically a visual representation of the paths users take to complete a specific task or goal. So it will just give you an overview of everything you have to go through. And I think that's it from here. I think once you actually go through the ideation phase, you will be able to map out a better information architecture for whatever product you are developing. Up to this phase, you don't really know what you are building as a solution. So you normally define that on the ideation phase. You get to ideate a bunch of different solutions for a product, uh, ideas and everything. So you will take all of these steps and actually improve them after the next phase. Like you're going to be able to build a proper information architecture for your new product. So this is the define phase. So you'll be able to actually synthesize what you're doing here. So I do have a little exercise for you right now. It should be very simple. No experience needed. You should be able to do this with if you're participating on the challenge. So if you are on the challenge already, I think it would be great to use your your previous research, and specifically what I'm trying to do here is to craft your problem statement and to do a few how might we statements. Okay, so the way we are going to be doing this is that we are crafting one problem statement and at least 3 how might we statements for this. Okay, so how do we craft a problem statement? I'll give you an example from someone commuting to work. So this person needs to commute to work 1 to 3 times a day, a week, sorry, 1 to 3 times a week, and it takes 10 to 60 minutes for a trip. So you know that that person already told that to you through research. You know that that person needs to commute to work, and you know that that person lives in a certain area of the city. So how do you actually put that together? You start with your user, who that person is. It's an adult in my case. So an adult person, it can be a male or female. It doesn't really matter because for us, it fits within the demographic. So an adult person who lives in a city needs to use a car for 10 to 60 minutes trips 1 to 3 times per week. To do what? Because they need to commute to work. So you have a user, you have a need, and you have a reason for using. Okay, so and in the end the sentence is an adult person who lives in a city needs to use a car for 10 to 60 minutes trips 1 to 3 times a week so that he can or she can commute to his office. And how can we actually add how might we statements here for this? So one problem statement, many how might we statements as you want. You can go very literal, like how might we help an adult person who lives in a city commute to work easily during the week, which is basically converting your problem statement into a how might we statement. Or you can go a little bit broad, like how might we reduce car travel duration for city commuters? Or how might we make city commuting more sustainable for 1 to 3 times a week travelers? So you can go quite broad because then you start working with sustainability, you start working with duration for city commuters. So what does this give us? If you create if you create more broad how might we statements, that will those sentences will help you to generate more ideas in your ideation phase, and you're going to have more ideas when you're actually drawing different ideas. You might go through like crazy eights or other types of activities during the ideation phase. So you will be able to have a bigger range of options and bigger range of ideas if you have more how might we statements for one single problem. I once was developing a product with the NHS where we had to create a GP registration journey for families, and we spent a full day creating problem statements and how might we statements, like a full day of workshop just to create as many how might we statements as we could think, because that will give you different scenarios. So how might we solve family registrations for single parents? How might we solve family registrations um, for people that just moved to this country? How might we do things in how might we improve the journey for families with newborns? So you have so many possibilities that you can do with how might we statements, and that actually will help you to ideate better solutions. So I will give you 5 minutes to create your problem statement and your how might we statements for this phase. If you are not in the challenge, you can use the scenario that we have here on screen, and you can generate more how might we statements than these ones that I've given as an example. It would be great to see more examples as well. So I would love to see more ideas about this one. Yeah, 5 minutes.
5 minutes sounds good.
Yes, I can actually answer one question that is in there right now. Um, I know that you guys, would you like me to answer, Alicia, or do you want me to wait until the end?
No, whatever you are most comfortable with. So if you're comfortable
Yeah,
diving in now, it's fine.
absolutely. Just I know that they are creating some problem statements right now, but I will try and do this now. So this is very, very common for us. I do, regardless of the industry you're going to be working with, you're always going to have differences between where they want to take the product and what are you trying to share as user needs, like what do users actually sometimes begging you to do. So specific strategies that I actually use is that I talk a lot about money. So in product, it's very like business owners really talk money. So if you actually show them numbers on how, I always, every time that I actually create a qualitative phase, I do some quantitative phase as well. And I try to get some data analysis that really helps me to actually show data, and I show numbers on how numbers can actually fall if they go for a strategy that can be a little bit overboard. So even though I am a designer, I'm quite involved in commercial phases, and I'm quite involved with the commercial side of a business as well. So that really helps me to see the numbers and to actually have an idea of how to deal with that. What I would tell to new designers, one of the things that no one told me when I was starting is how understanding business acumen is important in UX. how understanding numbers, how being on meetings that are that talks about finance, that talks about different sides of the business is important to the business itself, to the product itself. Knowing to talk to product managers, knowing to talk to UI designers, knowing to talk to business owners, knowing to talk to the different parts of the business is actually a very strong skill. And I would just add this to career changers, for example. So people that are transitioning, sometimes you tend to not take in consideration your background and what you learned in the past. But it's so important that you bring that part of you to your new career, because it can give you an advantage to actually towards the design career. Because we do think that UX design is just understanding the user experience, and it isn't. You're probably going to be the person that is most involved in with everything going on about the product and with the company. So knowing to talk to these people, knowing business language, knowing commercial language, knowing all of these things, if you come from that background already, or if you come from a background that you can take advantage of, use that in your favor. So those are the strategies I actually use. So I talk business when I'm talking to business people, and I try to adapt my language to the group and to the people that are actually talking back to me. So to me, I think that's the best thing. So don't just focus on being a designer, focus on understanding your product, focus on understanding your whole journey. I think that's it. So do we have more questions here? Or no?
We do. But first, thank you for that sort of in-depth um, answer. That gives me a lot to
Yeah.
like think about, and I actually have follow-up questions that I'll ask you later. Um,
Yeah.
we're at 5 minutes.
Yeah. Your 5 minutes are up. So is everyone okay to move on? Yeah? Okay. Okay. So choosing methods, I think that's a question that comes to me very often as well. So essentially, they come to me and say, Natalia, I have very short time on my project. How do I actually choose what to do? Like which methods I choose from a research or from the define phase or from each of these phases if I have X, Y, Z condition. So what I actually tend to do is focus on those 5 different areas here. Project goals. Choose your methods that align with goals. So what are you trying to achieve? You might not need to do personas for this product, for this part of the product. You might not need to do a full customer journey. You might have to do different types of things depending on the type of problem you're trying to solve here. That's number one. Choose your methods based on the goals you're trying to achieve. Number two, available resources. So I am going through a short phase of a project now that I do have a few weeks to complete research. So what's my available resources for that? Consider your time, your budget, and your expertise available. If you're not able to do a full qualitative research, full on usability testing and everything, like what can you do with the time and available budget that you have so you can actually achieve those things? Complexity of the problem is another thing that is going to be very important. So if you have a very short time for a very complex project or a problem, you're going to have a problem yourself. So you're probably going to have to escalate and talk to people about that, because if you have something that you have to solve for a whole population of a country and you have 2 weeks, it's not possible. So escalate. So that's another thing you have to take in consideration. Stakeholder input. Be on your stakeholders good side, like talk to them, take their feedback in consideration. A lot of I hear a lot of UX designers actually saying that they have to defend user needs no matter what, and you do have, but you also need to align with the people you work with. You need to listen to them. You have to talk to them about what they think is important as well. You might not actually be able to do everything that you want. But as I said, I'd rather have stakeholders and user needs as one thing than to actually have those two areas separated. So stakeholder input is very, very important for choosing your methods as well. So take that in consideration, and also your user research findings for this phase. Like, what are you going to be choosing for the define phase as personas, customer journeys, affinity mapping? It's going to depend on the amount of data you have. If you go full on qualitative data, or if you go full on quantitative data, you will going to be able to tailor methods differently for this. So this is how I normally choose methods. Goals, my available resources, how complex my problem is, what my stakeholders are saying, and what did I find out from research. And I also wanted to add the sentence that I absolutely love, that design is not just what it looks like and feels like, design is how it works. It's very important that you understand that from this stage. A lot of people will try and convince you that design is about how visually pleasing something is. But if you actually develop a product that is good on how it works well, people are happy with it, you see that the visual will come with it. Like, visuals will happen because the product works well. And this is essentially what you need for this, for the UX design in general. And why did I actually share that sentence? Because I wanted to talk a little bit about UX psychology as well. Um, understand people's behaviors is as important as understanding their needs. You will have your research phase. If you're in the challenge, you already could see how it's done. But understanding what the mind says and how the mind works will give you an advantage on how you can also present your product and defend your product to stakeholders. It's a lot easier for someone. I'll come back to this one. It's a lot easier if you actually go to a stakeholder and say, we should be creating this screen this way because humans have limited short-term memory, and presenting information in small and digestible chunks helps them to process and remember better than if you say, let's do it this way because my user said so. So also using psychology can really help you. So what is UX psychology and how do we use this? So it's basically a field that combines psychology, principles of psychology and design, and human computer interaction. And you can understand user behaviors and emotions. So understand how people think, how people read, how people memorize things, how people do any activity is crucial to understand how we can actually develop better products. You may think that you're creating the best product in the world. There's always problems. Always. I've never seen a single product problem. Sorry, I've never seen a single product in my entire career that didn't have problems. And this is normal. You're going to face this. And also it will help us to understand user behavior, increasing engagement and satisfaction for customers, informing design decisions and driving business. And you have to learn how to speak each of these languages to the right people. Driving businesses, I can't really stress this enough how important this is. So integrating psychological principles really helps you create a digital experience that are intuitive, enjoyable, and meet user needs. So it's another advantage that you have if you learn how the mind works. I only added a few principles here, and those principles are really relevant to the define phase specifically. There are hundreds of UX principles that you can use in the different phases as well. You can use visually, and you can use in the different phases of your whole design process. You can even use this with stakeholders. You can use this for literally different areas of the design process. So chunking is one of my favorite ones. It's very people don't take too much in consideration, and I think they take a little bit for granted. But I always talk a little bit about this. Presenting information in small and digestible chunks really helps people to remember things better. So do you know when you have like a book and that book is full on pages, full of text and text and text and text? Obviously, most of the time, if you enjoy the content, you will even read. But if you actually knows how to group things into chunks that make sense to users, it really helps them to digest better information. That really helps you to create better websites and better apps specifically. I do have Gestalt principles as well. Gestalt principles are very, very well known in the psychology of design specifically, but they are very useful for UI designers as well. So you have law of proximity, that are elements that are put together, they are perceived as belonging together. You have law of similarity, elements that have similar shape, color, size, orientation, they are also perceived as belonging together. You have law of closure, for example. Law of closure, when presented with incomplete shapes, humans tend to perceive them as a uh, as a single object, and then they complete those parts of the object that are missing in their minds. So there's also closure. There's law of common fate, for example. Elements that move in the same direction and share common motion are perceived as belonging together. You know, when you have websites having motion graphics and UI elements moving together in the same direction, those are always grouped and perceived as one thing. And you have law of figure ground. This is very simple. It's basically like humans tend to perceive figures as foreground or background. The figure standing out against the background is always perceived as the primary focus of attention. That's essentially what it is. Those are the Gestalt principles. They're very common. Like really learn those principles because they will take you ahead of the game. Higgs law, Higgs law. He's a very common. This is a very common law because you can see this law happening everywhere. This law suggests that increasing the number of choices increase decision time. Who has never been on a e-commerce website with a million options and it takes forever to actually pick something? So the most choices you give, the hardest it is for anything. You have something called cognitive load theory as well. So the cognitive load theory says that we have a limited amount of attention and also like amount of mental effort being used in our working memory. So we do have different types of memories. We have the short-term memory, we have working memory. So we do have to pay attention at those things. At some point, humans, when they feel like they have too much to read and they are overwhelmed, they give up. That's called cognitive load as well. You have something called serial position effect. This principle is like, I really love this principle because it really suggests that an item at the beginning or at the end of the list are more likely to be remembered than those in the middle. It's basically like, I'll make a joke, but it's very true. Like the first child and the last child, and then you have the middle child that everyone says that, yeah, people forget. It's a little bit like that, you know. It's just a joke, but unfortunately, that's a little bit of the reality of things. But you also have this in different situations. You have everything, you know, when you go on a job interview, if you see a lot of people within a sitting with you, normally the people that go first and the people that go last are the most remembered as well. So things that go at the beginning and the end are really easier for people to remember in general. That's the serial position effect. And you have the recency effect as well, which is literally just basically it's a tendency for individuals to remember and recall information presented last. So when creating something like, for example, personas, you can add something at the end of that reading that is most important for them. So you add your some of the very important information at the end, and that's going to be the recency effect for that. So as I said, I don't have, unfortunately, a lot of time. Those laws are very important. I do talk a lot about them on LinkedIn as well. Like every day, I'm posting something about these laws and about UX psychology. So if you want to see more, please go there. But otherwise, there are like so many places you can go, so many good websites as well for this. Hold on, let me just. And we have, I'll give you 5 minutes for exercise number 2, and then we can have a few minutes for questions. So exercise number 2, I will share something here with you in the chat. I do have a persona template. Oh, can I actually share something here? I don't know.
Yeah,
Sorry,
you should be able to share it in the chat.
yeah, I don't have actually an icon for that. Participants, no.
Okay. If you
I
want
can
to,
send you an email.
yes, email or LinkedIn, whichever is closest or easiest for you.
Okay.
Just let me know which one.
I will go on email because I do have you already here.
Okay. I'm ready
So
to
it's
grab it.
just a persona template that hold on. My screen just froze.
Oh, no worries. So participants should be creating their personas now, and you're providing some templates for them to use, yeah?
Exactly.
Okay, great. So participants feel free to start jotting down aspects of the persona while we're getting the templates to you.
Yeah, it's already with you.
Okay, let me go grab it.
Yeah, for some reason I don't have permission to share.
Hmm, I'll look into that. Um, I don't have it yet. Oh, there it is. There it is. There it is. Great.
So you can also complete these after the session. I created this a while ago, and it's quite helpful. It's on PowerPoint, and I do have some B2B and B2C persona scenarios as well, so it might help you with the different industries. You won't be able to create your whole persona here, so I'll give you 5 minutes to just play around and see how you can start adding some statements there. But yeah, you can complete this after.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah. So you weren't able to share it, but also I am not able to. I think because of the format or size of
Oh,
it's
no, but
restricted.
I couldn't even open the, I mean, upload it. Like, no, I don't even have an upload button.
Okay. Well, what we can do, Natalia, can you
Yep.
share maybe your favorite, an image of
Yeah,
your favorite template?
I
And
can.
um,
So
participants, designers, feel free to use this template for now. And in our Discord, I will share all of the templates that Natalia is sharing here, so you can save it or transfer your data to your favorite one, or just like have them for your future endeavors.
yes. So essentially what we have here for the personas is PowerPoint template. So it's going to be very helpful for you. It's going to be easier for you to actually type things. I know how annoying it can be when someone sends you a PDF for you to complete a persona. I trust me, I'm a designer, so you can actually adjust everything for yourself here. It's not a problem. Yes, I know. I know. So I actually created this like this because I was quite annoyed with PDFs for a long time that you can't do anything. Depending on on your industry, so I worked for with B2B for a while, and I worked in the public sector. So a lot of my personas are like this. So if you go into B2B personas, which is basically business to business personas, they are more focused on people that work, like they're focused on people that work somewhere. Essentially, the difference is that business to consumers can take decisions quicker, and they can take more risk because they're just making a purchase of something. But business, they are investing money from the business on something. So they are a lot more cautious about how they spend that money, which makes the attribute scales different between them. Here, you're going to be talking about personality when you're talking about a consumer. But when you are on B2B, you're going to be talking about attribute scales and information, for example. So you can actually rate if that person that position, a marketing lead, if he's a risk taker, if he is strong in leadership, if how is his availability and budget controls. Because you might get a person that is in a very high position and is actually talking about buying your product, but it makes no decision and has no product budget control. So you will be able to actually align this and to talk to these people in the correct way. So it's very important for you to know these certain attributes about these people you're trying to sell to. I find selling in B2C easier than selling on B2B for a few reasons. B2B, they have controlled budgets, and sometimes budgets can be pulled away as well. You won't be able to control that. While consumers, you can actually talk about their emotions. You can really appeal to their emotions. Here on this first one, I have a few examples. On the second one, I have an empty one if you want to feel without the information that I put here. So it's the same for this one, and you have it without any information at all. So I hope you enjoyed this personas, and essentially that's it from me. Hold on, let me just go to the other screen. If you have, we can have some questions now if you want, Alicia.
Yeah.
I know we don't have too many minutes, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. But I also want to make sure that we're respecting your time. Do you have like 3 to 5 more minutes for?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Kim, do you have a list of questions from the presentation? I have some too, so just let me know if you've got it.
Yep, I just sent them to you. Just consolidated.
Awesome. So Natalia is in the chat.
Hold on.
Also, while you're looking for it, I can also start you off. So for example, the very first question here, when you were talking about affinity mapping, you were talking about always utilizing it, and somebody asked if affinity mapping, is it always equal to pain points?
No, not necessarily. So a pain points map can be just a mapping of all the pain points you're going to find from your research, and you can map that even on as a customer journey mapping as well. So you can actually add in your pain points against the stages of your user steps as well. But an affinity mapping is something more generic. It's like a bigger picture of everything you're going to find out of your insights. And a pain points is just about the pain points. So it starts to be a little bit more as if you already know what your bigger groups of problems are, and then you're only working with your pain points specifically. So it can be helpful if you're working in certain types of industries like public sector or B2B. So they're more useful on those journey on those sectors as well.
Okay. Cool. Lena, let us know if there's if that answered your own question, or if you're talking about
Yeah,
something else. Just let us know in the chat or by unmuting yourself.
Yeah, that was good. Thank you.
that's all right.
Cool. I see that the next question that came up, let me know if I'm not pronouncing your names correctly as well. I'd love to do so, so please let me know. The next question is from Akshit. Is it possible to incorporate chatbots as virtual team members when you're working on a solo project during affinity mapping?
It's possible to incorporate chatbots as virtual team members when working on solo product during affinity mapping. Um, that's a complicated one. It is possible to incorporate chatbots as virtual team members. However, if you do that, you can also lose credibility because at this stages of the UX process, the best thing is to actually working with humans. You can work solo. So working solo is better than actually incorporating bots and any other thing. So prefer to work solo than to actually add AI to this stage specifically, because it will actually help you to think better as well if you have the ownership of the product. But it's look, I've been there. I worked solo as well. I've worked for agencies in the past, and I had many products that I had to work by myself. Um, what I normally do is that I do incorporate people that are not in UX, like other parts of the business, like bring other people in, bring different minds as well. I'm sure that people will love to help. And actually, the earliest you get people involved with your product, the best. You get a buy-in a lot easier. So yeah, so avoid chatbots. It is possible. Yes, it's possible, but try and avoid it.
Yeah, that also brings like, or can lead to really good conversations about AI and like, is
Yeah.
it good enough yet? Or like, how can we test it? if they're good enough yet. You know what I mean? So those are also some really good conversations that can come from that question. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
But also let me know if that's what you were asking about, Akshit. And if I pronounce your name correctly, feel free to let me know in chat or just unmute. I can say that our next question is from Sadia. When you were talking about creating the problem statements and the how might we's, Sadia asked, for user, should we describe the user or can we also say what their struggle is?
You can also say what their struggle is. So essentially at that phase, it's quite adaptable. So if you want to, if you have that information at hand at that stage, yeah, you are totally free to include that.
Hmm. Cool. Yeah, that's useful to know because I feel like the main template after to create a problem statement is like simple, but then when you're actually trying to do it, then all these questions come up
Yeah,
of what you can include. So I totally get the
you can
importance.
absolutely adapt it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that.
It should work in your favor, those things, like all of those methodologies. It should help you to do a better work.
Mm. Okay, yeah. So maybe a good like checkpoint is it after you've created these things, like, is this helping to clarify what I'm doing? And if the answer might
Exactly.
be no, then what else can you do, or what else should we be looking for, or adding, or taking away to like do that work?
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. So adapt whatever whatever I'm presenting here to you. This is the this is the ideal world, but in the real world, you're going to have so many different scenarios and so many different problems that you will have to adapt every single thing here.
Hmm. Okay,
So
yeah.
I have a quick question about it,
Yeah.
really quick. So is it all right to like that you go through with it, see the problem statement, and then kind of decide if that's working for you or not, and then probably go back? Is that what you probably would do?
Sometimes I go back and change problem statements as well. Yeah, because once you actually go ahead, you will be able to tailor that problem statement better as well. Once you actually have more information, more research, every time you iterate, those problems will change. And also, you will be able to solve a problem. And sometimes you have a variation of that problem you solved. You might have different scenarios. You're always going to be able to adapt to those things. It's not like set on stone at all.
Gotcha. Thank you so much.
That's okay.
Hmm. And I think we have one more question here.
Yeah.
Maranta, again, let me know if I'm pronouncing your names correctly. Do you have any books or resources to learn more about UX psychology? You mentioned your LinkedIn.
Loads.
Is there a specific book or specific other resource that you really like?
Yeah, so you can read Laws of UX, quite good book as well. You can read 100 Things That Designers Should Know About People. There are two versions of that book as well. There's
Hmm.
a very good website that is, I think it's called growth.design, that is specifically about UX psychology as well. So, and there are a few people like Valiant as well, like you can follow on LinkedIn, that he's quite great on UX psychology. So yeah, so there are like those. I would start with those two books first. 100 Things That People like designers should know about people. There are two versions of that, so it's 200 things instead of 100 things,
Hmm.
and Laws of UX as well. Those are the three books I would start with for beginners.
Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate that. I have a follow-up question, if that's all right.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Natalia, so you were talking about service design and like your previous experience before going into service design. Is there anything that you wish you knew at the beginning of going into service design, or any learnings that you wish you had at the beginning?
Yeah, there absolutely. Because I actually dropped into service design without actually know service design too well. Because I'm a product designer, and there's also like a misconception that those two careers are the same, and they are not. So
Mm.
service designer can be a lot broader than product designer. We can focus a lot more in one product when we are actually developing a product. Service design, what I really would like to have known before is that it's not just about service blueprints. It's very common for people to actually start in service and say, I need to develop the best blueprint in the entire world. But it's like service blueprints is just a small part of service design. I think you really need to understand all bits and parts of that service before you even try and build something like that. So understanding the business side of things, understanding how it's actually impacting people, understanding how that's going to be applied in the real world. Those are things I wish I knew before, instead of just like first thing I did when I was starting as in service design was let's get this blueprint out of the door and let's get it done. Actually, it's not really that helpful. You really need to start and understand the business a lot better before you even go ahead with something like that. So that's, yeah, absolutely something I would prefer to know before.
Okay. Yeah, that's helpful, and that can be like an entire talk in itself, clearly.
Yeah.
So designers, just letting you know, the PDFs that Natalia wanted to share with you, I put it in 2 channels in our Iterate UX Discord, the main channel for everybody, but also the main channel for the 2024 Design Challenge. If anybody's having any issues finding them, feel free to hit me up on Discord. I'm happy to share them with you directly. And Natalia, again, thank you so much for
Thank
sharing.
you.
It was awesome. And real learning experience always to kind of hear from someone in the field. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you. Absolutely.
Yeah. As a reminder, this is being recorded and shared on our YouTube channel. And Natalia, if people want to hear more from you or follow you, what social channels do you prefer?
I only use LinkedIn. So if you want to go to my LinkedIn, I can actually drop here in the chat my LinkedIn. I unfortunately don't use anything else.
I mean, pros and cons, right? But good to know
Yeah.
that you're on LinkedIn and we can follow you and hit you up on LinkedIn.
Yeah, absolutely. Just just like join there. I talk a lot about women in tech as well. I know it's quite hard for us being in technology, so it would be great to have more people there. And if you want to connect, just send me a connection. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Everybody have a
Cheers.
wonderful Saturday.
Yeah.
Thank you, Natalia.
Thank
Amazing
you.
session.
Bye.